Dre, and welcome to the Gated Gates podcast. We're back with you in Fort Lee, New Jersey, back with another episode. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge the forces in the non-material, particularly the Nabalamusa Mora Dinabig, the founder of the Earth Center, and all the ancestors that are standing behind the Earth Center and standing behind this great work. All the powers of nature, the deities, the genies, all the powers of nature that stand behind Kebtah and the Kebtah temples, and all of the great work. Also, your ancestors, my ancestors, all of our ancestors for bringing us together so that we could be here on this line with you today. I know you could be doing a lot of stuff on a Friday night, probably doing a lot of debauchery and foolishness, but here you are with us. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in. And my name is Tesiptah Maaheqwurr. I am the host of Gate of Gates with my co-host
Kaji's Raymond Sai Kebtah.
And today we're joined by two initiates.
Tiasta Maaheqwurr.
Ujjayi, I am Tesiptah Heqwabti.
And before we get, a word from our sponsor. Give me 1 second. Sauce Hot Sauce began in 2007 when a small group of students traveling in West Africa were trying to think of ways to support charitable projects. One of the students traveling happened to be an artisanal hot sauce chef, and right there, Sauce Hot Sauce was born. Since then, Sauce Hot Sauce has prided itself on making exceptional artisan hot sauces with high-quality ingredients to support good causes. We continue to do this with the best and tastiest offerings of sauce flavors to date, with a focus on supporting displaced families in the Fada and Gurma region of Burkina Faso with the revenue from our sales. Sauce Hot Sauce, you could get it at the Sauce Hot Sauce website. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's phenomenal hot sauce, brings taste. Very tasty and flavorful hot sauce, not just spicy. I've used it many a times to escape bland meals where people don't spice it properly. So it's great. You said what?
What people?
What people? People you know.
Raymond always wants to know.
Kaji's Raymond always wants the smoke. Always wants me to go the route of more and more smoke. And then I get yelled at off camera by the production team, like, you are to this, you are to that, you gotta calm down. And then here we are, once the camera turns on, Kaji's Raymond's like, fire! So,
can't help it.
We have a few things going on that I just want to talk about before we hop right in, right? We have a tour that's happening right now with E08 and Mira and a team of initiates, and they will be in Colorado for events, and you can check out the events on that for Dogon Wisdom. Is it .com or .org? At DogonWisdom.com. Please check it out. If you're in the Colorado area, Denver area, please check it out. Please go there. And we also have events the end of June in Austin. We have a couple of events in Austin. Then we have some events in New York. So we're going to have a few events here in the tri-state area. And then we also have an event.
So we have a few New York events coming up with Naba Erita Shenmira. He's a wisdom keeper, Dogon indigenous teacher, healer. It's going to be amazing. He's going to be at Maha Rose in Brooklyn, June 6th. Amazing little spot in Brooklyn where he's going to do an ancestral altar workshop. He's going to talk about the New Philosophy Podium on June 8th at Source of Knowledge Bookstore in Newark, New Jersey. And then we're going to have an amazing 3-day retreat in upstate New York, which you don't want to miss. There's going to be cleansing, healing, talks, wisdom, herbs, traditional dinner. It's going to be great. July 14th to 17th with a bonus Divine Feminine Day. And then we have also that same weekend, if you can't make it up to upstate New York for the long weekend, we have an amazing talk at Weeksville Heritage Center on Saturday, July 15th.
Yes. That was put so much better than how I could have put it. So thank you, Tiasta. What would we do without you? And Yeah, let's hop right into rapid fire.
Ujai. Greetings, everyone. This is Tutana Heqwabti, co-producer.
Yes.
It's that time for rapid fire. We go through news, headlines, and current events. Reminder that this is a 90-second per headline segment. So try and keep it concise but potent.
What you trying to say?
You know, a little long-winded, but it's okay. We got this. So the first topic is hard to ignore. The sky was orange. The sun was red.
Oh.
There were wildfires happening in Canada, apparently caused by lightning. And apparently 7.9 million acres of land, the size of Maryland, have been burning. So more context on this, the majority of the fires are happening in Quebec, and the smoke has been traveling down throughout most of the Northeast. You know, New York City, even the Midwest, have been dealing with intense smoke, and New York has experienced the worst air quality in the history of New York City. So you all saw it. Any thoughts on this catastrophe?
Well, for starters, okay, so there's like two ways we could look at this, right? Like if it's really coming from nature, then yeah, of course, that makes sense. But if it's not coming from nature, then they're lying. Because I don't necessarily believe it could be coming from fires.
Yeah, I think either if it's not coming from nature, somebody definitely started it, and they started it for a reason. There's like a huge distraction that they got going on for something. That's usually the case.
As always.
Yeah, there was like footage, I guess a lot of people, I've seen people posting on TikTok where there's the plumes are starting at the same time in like totally different areas.
The fires?
The exact same time.
It smelled like garbage burning to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Like when we're in Merita, that's what it smells like. It smells like the fires.
Yeah.
Like when they're burning garbage. Because I was somewhere and somebody was like, "Oh my God, what do you think about this?" And I was like, "It smells like they're burning garbage."
Yeah.
Right. It actually even kind of at first looked like Merita a little bit, like the scenery,
It looked-
but then it started to get real thick and dark. Then it was like, okay,
Like,
something
it
else is going on.
apocalyptic.
Then it
Yeah.
started looking like
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049 or whatever it's called. I was like, "Oh, word! It's
Right, this is what we're doing now.
good."
And then they
Right.
made us all wear masks again, right? Like
Right.
outdoor
Well, they
masks.
said, I only saw a few idiots wearing masks.
I mean, I was getting a headache.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. That's why I don't think it was
Yeah, it
necessary. I don't know if
wasn't good.
it's what they said it was.
Well, I mean, okay, it was happening, right? But whether or not it's from what they said
Right.
is a different story.
I think they're cutting us off.
Yeah, they're cutting us off.
So it is just fire. It's not like a planet called Nibiru in the sky. For the crazy
Well,
people out there who are saying that.
Well, tying into what Tesiptah brought up, there was a conspiracy theory out there, like you said, that from the satellite, it seems like the fires were started at the same time. So they were saying essentially like just how like the train derailment, you know, created like an oil spill and like ruined our water supply. Maybe the air supply is also being intentionally sabotaged. You know, any thoughts on that conspiracy?
What is this mask
Air
agenda?
supply.
What is the mask agenda? Like
What do you mean?
like COVID, it was like everyone has to wear a mask wherever you go, indoors, outdoors. Right now, again, air quality is being affected.
Well, I think that's more so about control of the masses, honestly, than it is about health or the mask itself. I think it's just symbolic.
Symbolic, like you can't speak. We're gonna like.
I don't know. I never thought of it like that.
I just thought it was weird they didn't, like, it seemed to be, I think the AQI was like up to almost 400, which
What
is
does that
really,
mean?
really, really bad.
That's bad.
Yeah. Normally it's like 50 or something. So, but yeah, I just thought it was weird. I didn't really hear about it until it was like happening.
I mean, it's not like
So,
it's not like they don't do things like weather engineering and things like that. So it's not surprising. It's not. They're trying to kill everybody. Okay, like they're just trying to expedite the process of killing everyone, like in whichever way that they can.
And we can also look at the whole global warming, climate change agenda, the whole idea we have to save the environment, all of these things. So yeah, let's keep an eye on that and make sure this is a good opportunity for us to kind of, you know, prepare ourselves, take things like brain cleanser, take things like, you know, harvesting our own water supplies from springs, those kind of things. Yeah.
ANHlife.org. Get your brain cleanser, the black version.
There we go. All right, next update coming from Apple. Apple Vision Pro is Apple's new $3,500 AR headset. So this is an augmented reality headset, a bit different from virtual reality. Whereas virtual is basically all in the headset, AR can kind of translate into the actual reality. So now you're interacting with technology in the room around you, in the space around you. And these glasses are going to have a lot of features, including a 3D camera, a thing called eyesight, where like you can either be insulated within the headset or like your eyes can be seen by other people around you in the headset. This is going to be coming out at the top of next year, and the features are quite endless, including hundreds of thousands of apps and games, everything that you already have in VR, but more.
Wow, that sounds. I mean, if I was somebody else, that would sound amazing, but that sounds scary. That's very scary. It's like, what are they doing? Probing
Black
dimensions.
Mirror. It's like that show,
This
Black
is
Mirror.
ridiculous.
You guys have seen that, right?
Yeah. And there's a new season of Black Mirror coming out that I will be watching on June 15th.
Like, what? Plug for Black Mirror.
Yeah, whatever. Pay me, Black Mirror. Netflix, pay me.
But
I will keep you on a sponsor. Yeah.
But what does this do to the brain? Is what I want to know. When you're plugged in to this like VR reality, and then it can plug into other people's VR.
Yeah, it's like people are gonna have really bad withdrawals, I think.
Yeah.
So it's already like dopamine. No, serious, like dopamine addiction to like
Yeah.
TikTok and things like that. Like people are having like severe mental issues. So think about when you can fully immerse yourself like that. That's pretty scary.
It's like full on like pleasure experience.
Yeah.
Like you do anything you want in the world. You experience all the colors. All
You
the
can imagine how many. Hold on a minute. You can imagine how many losers are going to be masturbating, like watching porn,
Or just like sitting on the toilet.
Yeah.
They
Or,
already
like,
have
Sitting on
that.
the toilet.
They already have it.
And
I
then-
saw a video game where the guy had on one of those headsets, and he was, doing like a sex doll
Right.
in virtual reality. It's like a robotic
They got-
sex
You
doll.
don't have to live real life. You
They're
can just
giving
live
people
real
be-
life.
the Iron Man, the Iron Man glasses.
They're cutting us off. No.
Is it just me, or is my mic going in and out? Is that just me?
It might be my mic.
It might.
No, you're fine.
No.
I
Okay,
hear
no,
you.
it's coming. Yeah,
It's good?
working. Yeah, it's working now.
All right, yeah. So yeah, Black Mirror, that's definitely they're probably going to even foreshadow more of what's coming with AR, even in that show. They already have, actually. So
Yeah.
they're already showing us where it's going. Gen Z students in Japan are taking $55 classes to learn how to smile.
An hour.
This is coming from Business Insider.
So,
To
an
learn how to
hour?
smile.
Smile.
And apparently this is because of COVID. We're in the mask for so long.
I'm telling you guys.
So here are some quotes that came out of this article that were notable. One student said, "I hadn't used my facial muscles much during COVID, so it's a good exercise." Another person was saying, a researcher was saying, people have not been raising their cheeks under a mask or trying to smile much.
What?
Now they're at a loss.
Well, honestly, I think Asian people on a mass scale in those countries don't really smile much anyway. Have you ever noticed they all
That's
just
a
have that
stereotype.
straight face?
Yeah, I think that's just.
I don't
I don't
know. I
think
don't know.
that's
That's
true.
a very
To-
strong stereotype.
I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, they all
did
always
you
have
get
that
that
same
from?
face. Where I get my observation.
Where have you been in Asia?
In my sleep, I've been
Okay,
there.
all right. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Talking about Asians don't smile. Like what? Where'd you get that from? Like
I mean, when they come here, you never really see them smile like
bro,
that.
what are you
Most
talking
of
about?
them-
They're always taking those tourist pictures, and they're like,
That's not a smile.
that's
That's why they taking $55 hour classes, because they don't know how to
Learn
smile.
to smile.
They're right.
you can
It
pay
doesn't
me,
look like a smile.
Save $5. Pay me $50 an hour. I'll teach you how
I
to
mean,
smile.
like, I notice actually in Merita, though, in traditional areas, people don't smile as much as we do. We use smiles to cover things.
Yeah,
That's true.
it's like not
That's true.
sincere. Like
Yeah.
Americans are not sincere.
Americans are just full of shit
Yeah.
in
I
general.
mean, but then a whole culture's like learning to smile again. I mean, that's just.
You got to fit into
That's
the West.
sad. Yeah.
Were you offended by that?
No, but anyway.
It's madness. So Gen Z is already going in a very particular direction, but we have a new generation apparently that's emerging, growing up in this technocratic society, and it's called Generation Alpha.
Generation Alpha?
Yeah, Generation
So what
Alpha.
is
So these are
Generation
basically people who are like around 10 years old right now.
So are we gonna have to surrender to all of them? Or are they going to beat us
They're
and whip
saying
us?
that they're going to be the most technologically immersed, the wealthiest, and best educated generation ever.
So, okay.
So,
all right. So here's
yeah.
It's a lot
here's
to
the
unpack
interesting.
here.
Here's the interesting part, right? Is that they're saying that they're going to name. Hold on. They're saying that they're naming this one Generation Alpha, right? Because of the fact that they're going to be basically have no way out of what the system is putting them in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then if you notice, what's Gen Z? The hell was that?
It's like a motorcycle. or something.
Oh. What's Gen Z? No, I'm saying yeah, but I'm saying like Gen Z is what? Who's Gen Z again?
Oh, you mean the
It's age
alphabet
range.
people?
Teenagers, young, like.
When were they born?
Yeah, when were they born?
It's like after 95, right?
After
Or-
95?
Or
Born after,
some.
2010 was a cutoff.
2010.
Yeah.
Okay.
2010 is a cutoff.
Yeah.
96 and 2010.
Yeah, right.
So then, so you have to be born in 2010?
After.
Before.
After.
96
What?
to
Sorry,
2000.
before.
So 1996 to 2010. That's Gen Z,
Yeah.
right? Okay. 1996 to 2010.
Because they're kind of like the last ones that you can kind of count on that don't have a complete life based in technology.
Right.
Like the internet wasn't
I
fully
think
around.
Right.
Gen Alpha is going to be like real player. What is it? Ready Player One.
Yeah, I mean that's what
Right.
the Apple glasses are Ready Player One.
You know, pretty
mean,
soon it's
yeah.
just gonna be a literal iPhone. Like they're gonna stick something in your eye and that's everything. Like it's a chip.
I mean, have you seen that movie?
Shove it up your
Yeah,
ass.
yeah.
Where it's like they're literally living like in trash, but then they're like immerse themselves in like that.
Exactly. Like a VR world. They're living
Yeah.
not real life. They're living
Yeah.
a fake life. Yeah.
I mean, in a way, that's what we're doing right now.
You gotta,
I mean,
you gotta give the
close.
mic
No,
back
you're not.
to Tom.
I mean, TikTok and reality shows.
And speaking of TikTok, time is ticking for TikTok. Congress has deemed it a national security threat.
Oh, really?
So, recently in December, Congress passed the No TikTok on Government Devices Act, requiring the removal of social media apps, of this social media app from federal agencies. But due again to the worry about data, China taking data, using it for their own benefit and our own detriment, they're reconsidering, banning TikTok again for all U.S. citizens.
Because it's a Chinese company, right? TikTok?
Yeah. It's called a subsidiary of ByteDance. ByteDance.
I think it's just they keep trying to because they keep trying to take it down because they can't fully control it,
Right.
like other media.
Right.
Like I find out more information usually on TikTok of things happening than
Huh.
like CNN or like real news stuff.
Like people just like posting stuff.
Yeah, they'll just be there. They're posting it live.
Well, the government controls every other social media platform.
Yeah.
And then they're basically calling out China for doing what the U.S. government does with every other social media platform.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, how can you, like, that's the pot calling the kettle black. Like, who cares?
Well, it's about power, right? Like two powers can't exist at the same time. I mean, you can't do what I'm doing because I'm doing it. There's no way.
Right.
Yeah, China. America
It's
only.
like freedom of speech is a falsehood.
America.
Basically. It's like you go too far with your freedom of speech, we're going to find a way to cut you off.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, America is just... Get me started on America, but America's
Get
just
started.
full of it.
Get started. Let's do it.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm not going to get started to get cut off.
Yeah, that's a whole episode. So, moving forward, again, social media and the danger of influence when misused. A popular fitness influencer admits she faked having late-stage pancreatic cancer for 3 years to her followers.
Huh.
This influencer's name was Mian Bao of Taiwan. She was a fitness influencer, and she had a whole hashtag like cancer fighting
Does she
deadly.
smile?
And in early June, she deleted everything from her account and admitted her cancer diagnosis had been a lie. She
She ain't
said to
smiling
all
no
the
more?
family members, friends, fans, and netizens who have cared about me, supported me, and cheered me on, I want to apologize. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, that's social media for you.
Yeah,
People
I
will do
think-
anything to sell themselves. Anything. I mean, I see
Yeah.
guys out here putting on dresses, people out here doing ridiculous, stupid dances, all these stupid ass challenges. Like, that's just social media. You would do anything just to be seen, man. It's sad out here.
Isn't that the age-old thing, though? Like, faking illness for sympathy?
So what?
Like, people have done that throughout the ages.
Isn't there-
Now we just have social media, so it can
Yeah,
get
there's
promoted.
there's a platform for it now.
Yeah, there's a
For you, like what? Like what?
People have
Like,
done that.
yeah,
I mean, I've done that in school.
yeah, I said I had a cold.
Like, yeah. I have the flu. I can't go to school today.
Isn't that an actual mental illness? There's like people that do that for like a prolonged time or something.
Yeah. And then there's worse things where you fake it so your child is ill, or you make your child ill. So
I
you
saw
can
that
get
movie.
sympathy
I
and-
forgot what it's called, but that lady that she like made her child shave her head
Oh, yeah.
and like
Yeah, there was also a I listened to a podcast about that.
Munchausen's.
yeah,
syndrome.
that's what it's
Yeah,
called.
something. But yeah, I mean, I wonder what happened to make her come clean, because did somebody like find out and was like, I'm going public, and then she was like, no, and then she came clean, or something had to have happened, because there's no way she would have just came clean like that.
Right.
I think at some point, you know, after 3 years, people begin to say like, "Oh, you kind of look the same. Like, you're not. Are you getting worse? Are you dying? Like, what's really happening?" Because that's a long time to have a life-threatening, you know, cancer diagnosis.
I wonder how much money she made in that 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, she only had 11,000 followers after that lie, so we'll see. Hopefully enough.
Oh, so she lost followers?
Well,
I don't.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she did. I mean, that's how it goes.
But how many people were following her to begin with? It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's on you if you're like buying in.
Well, if you need herbs for cancer, anhlife.org.
There we go.
Actual
Maybe I
cancer.
should shave my head too and just, you know.
All right. on that note. So, next topic. This is pretty ridiculous. A Florida man was arrested after robbing a phone repair shop with a cardboard box on his head. So he came in. He had it's like a full, like, you know, probably like a foot and a half by foot and a half box. He got away with 19 iPhones, and $8,000 in cash. So he came up, but the box came off his head at some point, and he got caught in the process.
I feel like every ridiculous headline starts with a Florida man.
Exactly. Have
It's
you heard of
something
that?
in the water.
Have you heard of that challenge you can do where you Google Florida man, and then you put something random, and then
Or it could
something
be any
comes
date
up?
or something,
Yeah.
right? And something will come up.
Yeah.
What's
Like,
going on down in Florida, man?
but I saw something that said that Russians are Florida people that got jobs. Like that they're
that even
people
mean?
from Florida, because there's like a video of like a Russian riding a bear, like drunkenly riding a bear.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then they were
Yeah.
like Florida, like Russians or Floridians that
Yeah.
got jobs. Like, so. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
that
shout out
guy,
to Florida. I love Florida. My mom lives in Florida. It's a beautiful state,
Yeah, so
but a lot of weird news headlines.
Florida's so strange. Like, so strange. Yeah, but shout out to that guy. Good luck in prison.
Yeah, we got to do better out here.
Yeah.
We got to do better.
No, you got to do better.
In Florida.
I'm glad. I'm
The
not glad
cardboard
he
box.
got
Do
caught.
better than the cardboard box.
I'm not glad he got caught. Just like next time, wear a fucking ski mask. Like,
I mean, it's regular now with the whole, you know, COVID mask, and you can wear masks and pretty freely. So, next topic. In Costa Rica, apparently a crocodile was found to have impregnated itself in the first known virgin birth for a species. So, a female crocodile who was brought there at 2 years old recently gave birth, and there was no contact with any male crocodile in nearly 16 years.
That's what they
They
think.
tracked this.
That's what
Apparently,
they think.
That's what they're saying.
That's what they think.
where was the crocodile?
In Costa Rica,
Oh, where?
in a
though?
zoo.
In a zoo?
Yeah. And so they're saying that there might have been other crocodiles that have done this, but they weren't able to track it. But this one is confirmed in there. So, and it's called Parthenogenesis. Yeah.
How did they know that crocodile doesn't have like a sneaky link?
Exactly.
Yeah. That just came through, and like, how do they know some weirdo at the zoo doesn't crawl into the crocodile's like dwelling and then ingest it with like crocodile sperm?
Like
That would be a very weird thing. How would you,
like a turkey
Yeah, but
baster situation?
It's got to be something, because just don't try and sell me scientific proof about Christianity being real. Get the fuck out of here.
Right, I feel like they've been waiting for this story
Yeah.
for like.
There's tons of stories like this. I've even heard stories about women doing this, and they call it
Turkey basting?
no. Well, yeah, obviously they're turkey basted, but they call it some. I forgot the name, but stories about women impregnating themselves, and really it's just to kind of like sell the narrative of like the Christian faith all over again, because in this day and age, especially, people are looking for other alternatives. People are realizing that maybe religion is not it. So they have to do things to keep that narrative going, to make people think like, oh my God, it's Mary all over again.
It's real.
It's real. So I think that's what it is. But definitely that crocodile had a little sneaky link.
Yeah. Someone impregnated that crocodile, and it wasn't the Holy Spirit. So.
It wasn't the Holy Spirit.
They lay eggs, right?
Crocodiles?
Yeah.
How do crocodiles have sex?
That's for
Do we
Google.
need to get into that? Is that
That's a Google topic. or you can ask ChatGPT. So I have a topic for Qadr's Yemen. Egypt reopens historic mosque after long restoration. Apparently, this was the mosque of Al Zahir Beybars, built under Mamluk rule in 1268. It's the third largest mosque in Egypt, and it took them about $8 million to restore this mosque, which was co-funded by Kazakhstan and began in 2007.
Kazakhstan. Mamelukes. That's Mameluke territory right there.
I'm muting my mic.
Why are you muting your mic?
When the Marmalukes come up, Tadeeb's is like, I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, to me, this further proves one fact. Like, a lot of people like to talk about Egypt and the history of ancient Egypt, and there's always this debate on, are the people who live there not the indigenous people? Like, no, they're not. Let's be for real, they're Arabs. 90% of the people who live in Egypt, or so-called Egypt today, are imports. They came from somewhere else. They came from Saudi Arabia. They came from Turkey. They came from Greece. They came from all these different places all over.
You're talking about bloodlines now.
Right, they're bloodlines. They're not the indigenous people of that land, but they like to claim that they are. And think about it, if I'm indigenous to a land, right, why would I allow people to come up and dig up my ancestors and then actually go out and then actually like have tours where I'm getting money for them to come and see this stuff? Why would I loot my ancestors' graves if that's...
No, if you're still holding principles, you wouldn't do that.
Exactly. Again, it is what it is. Like, Egypt, or that region that we call Egypt, has been conquered and colonized so many times over the years by so many different people. It's all different mixtures of people there. But it just so happens that the latest people to conquer it and colonize it were people from the Arabian Peninsula, particularly Mamelukes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I rest my case.
Tutankhamun hit you with the
all of that. So, next topic we have on the land of Merita, or Africa once again, in Uganda this time. There's a startup called TextFad, which has a great sustainability initiative to use the remains of like the banana tree, because after you get the bananas, like the trunk is still there, and that's a big waste in that industry. They're turning the trunk into fibers, which can be turned into like a myriad of different products like mats, rugs, hair extensions, clothing, and etc. And so they're getting a lot of attention for being very useful and proactive about how they use the waste of the land's crop. Any thoughts on TextFad?
I don't even know what that is.
So,
Text pad.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. It's great because if you like if you grew up in like anywhere in Merita or in the Caribbean or South America, like when you pick bananas, normally you have to cut the tree down because once you pick the banana, it releases a gas, and that gas, it sends pheromones for the rest of the plants to actually start growing, but you need to cut down the tree that's there for a new one to grow. So oftentimes, like he was explaining, the tree that's cut down, it kind of goes to waste. So what these people are doing is they're taking that tree and then they're using it to create different fabrics, such as these cloths, clothing, the tablecloths, They're doing all even hair extensions, so we don't have to cut off people's hair, which is a spiritual crime. All of these different things, you know. So they're doing a very good job in actually reusing what nature is giving to them in a natural way, and they're making a lot of traditional things with it. So it's like keeping it in, like, you know, that natural kind of atmosphere, which is like where the world is really trying to go now with all of this child sweat logs and all these child
Sweatshops?
And all this. What do they call it?
Sweatshop.
The sweat is just
It's a
the
sweatshop.
child labor stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but hold on.
So shout out to them in Uganda.
Before we go any further, you thought we were just going to let it slide that you said cutting somebody's hair is a spiritual crime?
No. Wearing it when somebody
wearing
wears
somebody
it.
else's.
Yeah, wears it. Like if I cut your hair right now and I put it on my head, like that's
You'd look ridiculous.
that
His
you don't
hair
think
is
that's
spiritual,
weird?
right?
Exactly. Why would I want to take on what you got going on for yourself and put it on myself?
And then traditionally, when you cut your hair, it's a cleansing, right? So why would you
Exactly.
want to wear someone else's dead energy?
Exactly.
All right, moving forward, y'all. We have two well-known figures in American politics. Dr. Cornell West announces he's entering the 2024 presidential election. For context, he's a philosopher, political activist, apparently an actor, and also was a well-known professor at many Ivy League institutions. He carries a lot of left-wing politics, but recently he's been having more of what is considered right-wing points of views that are drawing a lot of negative attention. He's running as a third-party candidate, and then Mike Pence, former vice president, is also running for president, and he's known for his anti-abortion and anti-LGBTQ stances, which also have drawn him a lot of slack. And being with Trump is not helpful for his image, but you know that's beside the point.
Listen, man. Shout out to Cornell West. I don't know if you're gonna win, but shout out to you. Is this also the one about Mike Pence and women?
Yeah, it connects.
Oh, okay.
Feel free to share his stance.
Well, yeah. Shout out to Mike Pence. Mike Pence apparently doesn't interact with you unless he doesn't interact with women unless his wife is present, like in public. Like that's the definition of a dude that's like, I'm not getting caught up. Like my wife has to be here at all times, no matter what is going on, because then it's your word against my wife's word. So Mike Pence is out here like, you're not getting me, bitch.
He's seen too much go down. He was with Trump.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
Allegedly.
I mean,
Allegedly.
with Trump. I mean, this Cornell West, this guy, he was an actor.
Cornell, please.
I don't know anything
Cornell
about
West.
him.
Cornell West is much more than an actor. Like,
Yeah,
that'd
like
be
he's
kinda
got a
like
lot of titles
downplaying him.
there. Yeah.
I mean, he's really like a scholar. But Cornell West, if you want to talk about his acting career, he was one of the elders in the council in The Matrix, the Council of Zion.
Okay.
Huh?
This is
Hey.
like number 2 or 3 or something.
Council of
Two
Elders.
and three. Yeah,
Okay.
two and
That's like beyond the Matrix, though, right? Like,
what?
were they like the Council of Elders was like in the Matrix, or were they like?
No, you're going too far. You're going way too
I've
far.
seen that movie a long time ago.
Where
I regret bringing this up.
But yeah, shout out to Cornell West. He definitely has been an advocate for people's rights and Black America, those who are underrepresented, those who have financial difficulties. He's always been a voice for change. Okay, on a completely different note, there was a bizarre alien encounter witnessed in Las Vegas. Apparently, a family had a craft land in their backyard, or crash in their backyard, where two beings that were 8 to 10 feet tall came out with large eyes, shining eyes, large mouth, and they were just looking at them. They called the police immediately. The police also saw crafts in the sky around that same night. They weren't sure what it was, but those who called said that they were not human. That's for sure. So this has been under investigation.
How many calls did they get?
How many calls? I can't speak to that, but the call that's available, you can research it. It was pretty thorough. They were calm, but they were very detailed. You know, this height, this kind of look, this type of,
they were calm about seeing aliens.
They were, oh my God. It was
CIA, nigga.
Right. CIA.
agencies reported this same phenomenon.
Said who?
Many different agencies reported this phenomenon that same night.
Like the crafts in the air.
Meaning, like, so they're all in on it?
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Look, it was me.
Was you?
Whose
It was
conscience
me.
right now?
All right.
What were you doing?
I was taking my new ship out for a joyride. Okay.
Were you?
Yes. it
And
was me.
honestly, if I saw that, I wouldn't call the police.
I mean,
No.
I'd probably run away.
And I wouldn't be calm.
No,
No,
and
I
I definitely
wouldn't be
not.
calm.
And I
Yeah,
would
no.
not. I would not. That wouldn't be my first thought.
Right.
I mean, if I see aliens, I'm out. Like, I'm
How
out.
aware?
Well, out where are you going? Are you saying take me with you? Take
No.
me to your leader?
No,
You're just
like,
gonna
I'm not,
take
You're
a.
gonna do the
I'm not sticking
dissection.
around and taking
You're gonna
pictures
take a.
and none of that
You're gonna
shit.
take like a Kazasango bath.
No,
and
I'm
use
leaving.
your
Like, I'm out.
positive
Yeah.
your positive soap.
Like, I'm leaving. I'm out. Like, I'm running away. Like, I'm not sticking around to be like, is this real? Am I imagining this? Like, no, I'm out. This isn't our
Right.
Independence Day.
I'm sure we'll see a lot more of this coming up as another distraction more than anything over the next months.
Yep.
Okay, so on another completely different note, Lionel Messi, arguably the greatest soccer player of all time, just signed a contract with David Beckham's team in Miami. He turned down a $400 million contract in Saudi Arabia, so they're not too happy about it. He said
$4 million.
the decision has been made, and yeah, Messi will play in MLS next season. For those who watch soccer, this is a pretty massive update.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Messi's coming to America. Like, he's gonna be making bread out. He's gonna score so many goals. He's gonna make a lot of money, and he's apparently, like, Apple put money up to get him here. Adidas put money to get him here. So if he turned down the $400,000 contract up front, that means that he's going to be making a lot more money on the back end.
I think it was 400 million, right?
400. Did I say?
Wasn't
Yeah, you said 400,000.
Yeah, I was like 400. That's like
million, yeah,
that's terrible.
400,000. That's like the highest, not even the highest paid WNBA player. And for the record, Brittany Griner for The Lord of War is the worst basketball trade of all time. But
Yeah, it's interesting. Soccer players actually are the highest paid athletes. So
Wait,
no,
soccer players?
Not
Yeah, soccer
MLS,
players.
not
Like
MLS.
European soccer players?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no, they're not though.
who says
They're not, bro.
Yes, they are.
Like American soccer players.
are the highest paid athletes, bro.
They're not, bro.
In
Yes, they
Europe
are.
and Brazil?
They're not, bro.
So who gets paid more than soccer players?
NBA players.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Internationally,
Pull it up.
NBA,
Pull it
NBA,
up, bro.
no, NBA is not as big as the World
Pull it
Cup,
up.
bro.
We need a
Pull-
Google
It's called the
tiebreaker.
World Cup for
Pull
a
it
reason.
up, bro.
Every country plays soccer.
Let me tell you something.
Not every
Let me tell
country
you
plays
something.
basketball.
The most valuable sports franchises in the world, the top 15, it takes until you reach 14, 15 for the top biggest soccer franchises, which is like the 2 or 3 in Spain, to show up in the top 15.
You're talking about the Premier Leagues?
I'm talking about the top 15. I'm talking about the top 15 richest, most valued sports franchises in the world. Look it up.
It says basketball.
Well,
Thank you.
things have changed.
And the
I'm
Oscar
man
goes
enough to admit when I'm wrong. Things have changed.
It is a much more global sport. I'll give you that. It's a global sport, but the thing is that they don't make as much money as the athletes in basketball.
That's bogus. You know what it is? It's because it's America.
Well, that's the thing.
When you think about basketball, it's mainly an American sport. Not to say that other countries don't
That's
play
not true.
basketball. No, other countries play basketball, but let's be for real. Are you really checking for the players in other countries like that?
Bro,
No.
Spain has a pretty Luka
Alright,
Doncic.
I don't
From-
know them. That's
from
the
the
point.
Mavs. Yeah,
I don't
but bro,
know
that's what I'm
them.
saying.
I'm gonna
That's
know
what
a
I'm
basketball
saying, like, you
player from
shouldn't-
another
we're getting
country.
cut off.
You
I don't know
shouldn't-
that guy.
I think the point
You
of
see what I'm saying?
conversation.
Like, stick to Marmalukes.
I think at this point we all need to worry about making our own money because they got theirs. So
Yeah, it's true.
let's do
And
that.
while we're here arguing, we're still broke.
All right, so let's get into the health, the space of health. Article says breastfeeding your children will not make them smarter. This is on the Huffington Post. A new UK study correlates that longer duration of breastfeeding with higher academic test scores will grant higher academic test scores at
I'm
age
using
16.
my mic for this one.
However, people are rebuting this, saying that breastfeeding isn't the reason. It's more so status, and because people who have higher status and more money tend to have more access to breastfeeding, then that's why kids have higher test scores, not because of just the breastfeeding.
People with more money have
Like
more
basically saying like people who are
access.
poor have to use other means to afford to feed their children, which
your
makes
broke
sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
But that's what's
Doesn't make any sense.
I'll speak on this because I breastfeed. So if you're breastfeeding full time, nobody else can feed your kid. Like if your baby's not taking a bottle, like you're with your kid 24/7. So literally, unless you're working from home or something, or you're just, a stay-at-home person that doesn't have an income, or you'd have to be like taken care of essentially to really breastfeed full time. So it is kind of, it can be seen as that, but formula is also extremely expensive. So
Right. So how are they making the argument that poor people feed their kids more formula?
I mean, I'm just like I'm just trying to think of in that perspective, but
But to me, this article is like one of those articles that's like trying to refute a study because it wants to promote more people using formula, right? It wants to say, no, breastfeeding is not that awesome. It's like, take it or leave it. Because that's been more of the trend lately. It's been like, you don't really have to breastfeed if you don't want to. It doesn't have that many different outcomes between children, which spiritually and energetically and physically, traditionally, they know the benefits of breastfeeding.
right.
But nowadays, it's more like, let's promote big business because formula, let's face it, is a big business.
It's economics. That's all it is. End of the day, that's all it's about. Because even what you said, Tesiptah, with someone who's not able to really afford the time to breastfeed, rich people or people with money, they tend to spend that money. So even if they have the time, they're going to rather spend that money to buy the formula and actually go spend the time to go do something else other than sit there and breastfeed. So to me, that study doesn't really make any sense. Again, it's like what Tiasta is saying. It seems like it's just a political or financial agenda behind it.
It could be.
I think, you can say that, natural tends to be better. So if you can breastfeed, it's highly recommended. So next topic, Merck sues U.S. government to halt Medicare drug price negotiations. So Merck right now is currently suing about a lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CMS, as well as the HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra and CMS Administrator Shaquita Brooks LaShore. So some more context for this. This is the first attempt by a drug maker to challenge the law, which the pharmaceutical industry says will result in a loss of profits that will force them to pull back on developing groundbreaking new treatments. Merck, they actually have a top-selling drug for cancer immunotherapy called Keytruda, and they could be subject to negotiations as soon as 2028. Keytruda sells over $20 billion in a product. And one more thing, Merck is saying that the government is violating the Fifth Amendment, which requires the government to pay just compensation for private property taken for public use. So the pharmaceutical industry is now challenging the government, on their financial endeavors.
This is
It's like
it's
so
kind of went over my
convoluted trying to
head.
follow it.
So it seems like Well, this kind of ties into our topic today. I'm just going to use it as a springboard because I don't really understand what you explained to us. So I'm just going to say thank you for that and then use it as a springboard. And it's interesting, though, because now it seems like what it is it's almost like you're dealing with drug dealers, right? Like
You said it.
call them what they are. You're dealing with drug dealers.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you infringe upon another drug dealer's territory? They take you out. They take you out, and they don't hesitate to take you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is that looking at, man, is it just me or is my mic weird?
Nah, you good, man.
So the interesting thing about drug dealers is that, you know, they don't mess around. When you come and infringe upon their territory, they take you out, they kill you. And it seems like, because everybody knows that these governments function like gangs, right? And then so now what you're seeing is these corporations have built themselves up to such a degree that they're able to now challenge these governments. And the modern medical system is nothing but a business. It's a very well-oiled machine that fronts or positions itself or tries to have itself be positioned or perceived as a free market, research-driven market, which is for the betterment of people and scientific expansion. And it's not like that at all. And today, our topic is actually the modern medical system. And we're going to get into it from a little bit of the history. We're going to touch on it, you know, from many different aspects. We're going to definitely split this topic into two parts. We have Tiasta, who practices as a psychologist. And we also have Tesiptah, who, I mean, all of us have experience within the modern medical system, but we also have Tesiptah, who has experience as of recently within the modern medical system in terms of giving birth and dealing with a lot of the stuff that the modern medical system would impose upon her as a woman who was pregnant. And I really want to kick this off with giving a context. So, human beings are limited by the five senses, which means it's very difficult for you to expand out of the five senses unless you know what you're doing. So if you don't know how to expand past the five senses, then you can fixate on everything that has to do with the empirical, which means that if you're dealing with the modern medical system and science, right? Because people like to talk about science as something that is separate from the other aspects of the modern society. So we know that the modern society is really based on three pillars. It's based on science, religion, and politics, right? So for the con artist, politics is there for you. For the believer, religion is there for you. So somebody that likes a lot of Disney movies, a lot of fantasy, a lot of fairy tales, a lot of bullshit, religion is there for you. Now, for those that are a bit more practical, a bit more pragmatic, you have science. For the skeptics, you have science. For the logical, you have science. Now, science does its best to indoctrinate you with a very specific type of ideology, because the other avenues of the modern society has to indoctrinate you. So then science has to be there to indoctrinate you somehow, some way. And what they do is they make you focus on the physical, the things you can prove and only the things you can prove, which means you must focus on anything that does with the material. So the modern medical system is an extension of science, right? So the modern medical system being an extension of science, it means that the only thing that they can focus on and the only thing that they can deal with is the body. That's the only thing. So that means that everything within the modern medical system comes from the ideology of dealing with the body, which means you focus and you fixate on the material, which means you only deal with that which you can prove within the physical, and you only deal with, if you are looking at the human, right, or the composition of a human being, because we know that the human being is composed of 4 elements. We say it's the spirit, the soul, the body, and the name. So that means that science is only able to fixate on one aspect of the human, which means, if you want to look at it this way, science is only able to deal with your clothing, right? They're not able to deal with anything else, which means that when you're dealing with the modern medical system, the only thing they can do is change your clothes, right? So that is a little bit of an introduction of the ideology of the modern medical system so that we can get into it. So I want to open it up to the rest of the initiates, and who wants to take it away and talk a little bit about the history of the modern medical system?
So, the modern medical system is interesting, right? Because for a long time, I've always been a skeptic of the medical system. I've been a skeptic of religion. I've been a skeptic of society itself. But it's not until later years that I started to really realize that all these things are together. There's a puzzle, so to speak, like a puzzle that makes all of these things fit. And one of the main things that make it all fit is the history. Because words, language, it's interesting, because when you understand words, you understand the language. When you understand the language and the words, then you understand where things are coming from or what the meanings of things are. So understanding English itself is going back to a Greco-Roman kind of language. Then I had to take a look at that and say, okay, if all these different things I'm perceiving seem to be coming from that kind of culture or that understanding, then the modern medical system has to be coming from that as well. And in my research, I found that, we have this guy called Heqwabti in the ancient Greek times, and he started the philosophy of what they would call the modern medicine,
Hippocratic oath.
Yeah, healing, and exactly like Tiasta just said, the Hippocratic oath. All of the doctors and the nurses that you can think of, they actually have to swear in. And they have to take an oath, and that oath is called the Hippocratic oath.
Have you taken that oath?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not a medical doctor, just to clarify. I'm a doctor of psychology, which is technically a PhD. So they won't. I can't prescribe. I can't prescribe medication. They're not gonna let me do any of that.
Okay, keep going. I thought she could. Yeah.
So, so they take this oath, right? But this oath is really to this guy, Hippocrates, who in Greek times, ancient Greek times, they actually made him like a god. They made him a god. So when you take this oath, you're actually taking an oath to this god or this deity. And they call him Asclepius or something like that. That's the nickname that was given to him as a god.
I have the oath here if you want it.
Oh,
that's actually something
oath?
people
do
still.
Yeah, they still do
The
that.
doctors do that.
The doctors and stuff for you to really take that oath is kind of like an initiation. So you're initiating into sort of like a secret society in a way, because that's what it really is. Well, and why would they need to be secrets if the person is trying to be there to help you, right? At least with health, from a health perspective.
Is this it?
That's what Google says.
But here's the thing, though. The Hippocratic oath changes. They kind of alter it every year, and they alter it based upon the needs and necessity of what
covenant
the current business
Wouldn't be surprised.
is.
The basis of it is I will do no harm.
Right.
I will do no harm.
All right, so listen to this. Let's read this. The Hippocratic Oath, modern version, written in 1964 by Louis Lasagna.
1960. Lasagna.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Real G's moving silence, right? I swear to fulfill, to the best of my ability and judgment, this covenant. I will respect the hard-won scientific gains of those physicians in whose steps I walk, and gladly share such knowledge as is mine with those who are to follow. I will apply, for the benefit of the sick, all measures that are required, avoiding those twin traps of overtreatment and it's crazy. Listen to this. I can't even say it now. Therapeutic nihilism.
Therapeutic?
No.
Therapeutic.
What's that word?
Yeah,
Is that therapeutic?
Whatever.
Therapeutic, whatever. Therapeutic nihilism. But hold on. Listen to that. How do you say it?
Therapeutic.
Therapeutic nihilism. Think about that for a second.
Nihilism.
Yeah, nihilism, whatever. What is this, English class? Moving on. I will remember that there is art to medicine as well as science, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug. I will not be ashamed to say, I know not, nor will I fail to call in my colleagues when the skills of another are needed for a patient's recovery. I will respect the privacy of my patients, for their problems are not disclosed to me that the world may know. Most especially must I tread with care in matters of life and death. If it is given me to save a life, all thanks. But it must also be within my power to take a life. What? This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. Above all, I must not play at God. I will remember that I do not treat a fever chart, a cancerous growth, but a sick human being whose illness may affect the person's family and economic stability. My responsibility includes these related problems. If I am to care adequately for the sick, I will prevent disease whenever I can, for prevention is preferable to cure. I will remember that I remain a member of society with special obligations to all my fellow human beings, those sound of mind and body as well as the infirm. If I do not violate this oath, may I enjoy life and art. What?
And art.
Life and art,
Respected
okay.
while I live and remembered with affection thereafter. May I always act so as to preserve the finest traditions of my calling, and may I long experience the joy of healing those who seek my help.
Wow, that's a pretty long and deep oath. Which it's interesting.
Louis
like
Lasagna.
a
That
lot
sounds
of,
like a fake name. Louis Lasagna.
right. A lot of what you just read, it actually even kind of puts into perspective a little bit like the kind of culture we're really coming from, because they're talking a lot about art. When you look at like the Greek culture or like the Roman culture, which is pretty much the same, everything is like aesthetic. It's all about the aesthetics of things. It's more about how something looks as opposed to how something really is. So that's kind of like the modern medical system. Like it's kind of designed to look appealing or look a certain kind of way to attract people, but it's not actually designed to actually work, because you go there for treatments. You don't go there necessarily for cures.
Well, there's a number of things in that oath, namely the ability to take life as well as preserve life. Which
That's contradictory.
Right. Like in what circumstance would a healer or a doctor ever need to take a life? Which, doesn't make sense in the concept of everything that we receive in terms of the indigenous perspective on healing is that a healer is meant to preserve life. It's the number one goal,
Only.
essentially, of a healer.
Well, there's there's options for people now for like euthanasia, right?
Right.
Like in Oregon and stuff like that, they do that.
Technically, they're saying it's still illegal in most places, but now in like Scandinavia, you can go and you can do like assisted suicide, essentially.
Assisted suicide?
If you're terminally ill. Only if you're terminally ill, then you can have like, you can choose to go out sooner than you would, basically. But, I mean, there's a lot of things in that oath, including what Kajizriman said about life and art, right? I mean, what does art have to come in to healing? Because if we're gonna say that healing is, you know, someone who is trained as a healer.
Turn off my mic.
Needs to have a technical knowledge of, let's just start with the body. You need to first have a technical knowledge of the body. So in terms of the idea of art to me means aesthetics, right? Something that comes into play with like human creativity. I don't see how you play with someone's health in terms of like artistic license.
Well, there's like plastic surgery.
Well,
You've
there
clearly
you go.
Like a
never
whole-
taken the Hippocratic Oath.
No, I have not.
How dare you? Silence. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you were about to say like what, that plastic surgery is art?
No, but there's people, that's like an aesthetic thing.
It is.
So people are like, oh, like,
Just
you
like,
know.
don't be talking about the plastic surgeons. Those are real artists.
But the systems even come to a place where, like, you know, they're like, you want to change something about your appearance, we'll do it for you. And people have no problem.
Yeah.
They're like, as long as I don't feel anything, like, chop me up. It's like really crazy.
It's crazy because like I remember growing up, like my dad always used to be like, get up, like let's go do this, let's go do that, like let's go work out, let's, you know, like get up, don't just be lazy and don't just loaf around. But now it's like people, like they don't do that. They're just like, you know, why would I work out when I can just go get lipo?
Yeah.
Like, why would I work on my insecurities or what I think is not right about me when I can just go get a doctor to just tuck here, nip here, and yada,
It's
yada,
like
yada.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Like, no, it really is. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, listen, to go back to what Tesiptah was saying in the very beginning about how the modern medical system is literally just focused on the body.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy to me because, I mean, now knowing what I know how broader the idea of health and healing is, broadened out to the spiritual, to the energetic, you know, your connection to your ancestors all plays a role in your actual health, your physical health, your mental health. And now they're so stuck on this idea that it's only what we can measure, right? Only what is in the material space that we can measure is what we're going to focus on. So we're going to focus on the organ system. We're going to focus on the heart, the brain. Even in mental health, it's like they've drilled down everything in mental health to the brain, right? And so like even the brain itself, we're doing a handoff right now.
They're doing a handoff. Thank you.
Like,
This is medicine, by the way. It's not
alcohol.
It's not alcohol. I asked Tutonin to get me it in a shot glass worth of water, and then he brought me a literal shot glass. So thank you.
taking some medicine for the modern medical system.
Exactly, right.
But yeah, so like psychology itself, knowing what I know now and knowing what I know about like mental health issues, even like depression, anxiety, even schizophrenia, which people literally get hallucinations and visions, which in some other indigenous context could literally be seen as priesthood, right?
Could be seen as that's the priesthood,
a
man.
spiritual predisposition. And they're going to drill it down to anomalies in the brain. And they're going to try to find any brain scan they can to explain that anomaly.
Or a physical part of the brain that doesn't look right or look how they think it should look.
Exactly.
But everybody is an individual who has their own makeup, who has their own, aesthetic to them, but they have like a standard way that they think something should be based off, again, like things only being physical. And you know, it is what it is, because that's just, again, the culture that we're dealing with. Like, even to talk about going back to the original point of this conversation, going back to the origins of it, right? To talk about everything being physical, when we talk about the modern medical system, we have to understand that it's dealing with the physical because it's coming from a culture that only thought of things in a physical sense. And we have to understand that even the Greco-Roman societies, they were cultures of war. So they were cultures that were based on war. How they got their power, how they got their resources, was conquering and fighting. Now, somebody who was unable to fight or deemed unworthy was, you know, deemed like somebody who was inferior. This is where we even get the term infirmary from, right? So these people, what the original form of what they call a doctor or a physician would do was to take soldiers, patch them up, and find out what was wrong with them physically and fix that, give them like a little solution or a painkiller or something that could keep them going, to ignore what they're feeling in order to keep on fighting, to go out there and keep battling. If you look at today's society, what's the difference? Because Tesiptah mentioned it. It's nothing but a corporation. The modern society is a corporation. It's a business. That's why we all have social security numbers. No different than if you have a job and you have a EIN numbers, social security numbers. If you have a job, you have a number, you have a code, something you have to put in. It's no different. It's the same thing, because it's all about business, which is what the driving force of the society. Back then it was war, and it's no different right now. We might not be necessarily all fighting physically in war, killing each other, but we're fighting physically in work. We're fighting physically and going out there to do a job or get a job done. So we're all soldiers, essentially. So what the modern medical system is the system that's in place to patch up the soldiers, just enough to keep them fighting, just enough to keep them going.
To keep us sick, to keep taking the prescription medications.
Well,
It's a business.
It's a huge business, right? And I think the thing that we kind of neglect or don't get to really talk about a lot is how everything in the modern medical system is stolen from indigenous societies, which means aspirin. Does anybody want to tell the story of aspirin? Does anybody want to tell the story of antibiotics? Bueller. I know everybody knows this story.
Yeah, like aspirin, essentially painkillers came from indigenous plants, like 3 different indigenous plants, and it was found by a German scientist who basically started a company in Germany called Bayer originally, and then that company during World War I got co-opted after the defeat of Germany, got co-opted by the U.S. And they took the recipe, basically the Germans took it from the indigenous, the Americans took it from the Germans, and then created their own. Originally, I believe the company was aspirin. And then the brand name of the drug became aspirin.
Anybody want to give the story of the Wren papyrus and the what's the?
You talking about antibiotics?
Yeah, sorry. What did I say?
The Wren papyrus.
Yeah, did I say? Yeah, that's what I said. Right? I said antibiotics.
Yeah. Facts. It's true. You know, again, everything has a history, because we're talking about the history of the modern medical system, which we're really going to get into. But to just give some context, historically, which is interesting. Before I even mention that story, like, one thing I find interesting is that Tesiptah said that science, right? Science is one of the main pillars of the modern system. But when you think of science, what exactly is science? Because something that is a science is something that is actually known, something that's proven, something that's time tested. But today, science is something more like a belief. Science is something more like an ideology than it is a belief. But the sciences that they use are stolen, because whatever knowledge that they may have, they had to learn it from somewhere. They got a lot of these medicines that people are taking, whether it be aspirin, whether it be what do they call that? What do they give the diabetic people? insulin, all of these different things. Right, all these different things. The stuff that they give you to numb your teeth whenever you have to go to the dentist and get like a Novocaine, all this stuff, right? It's coming from plants. Who has the knowledge of plants?
The indigenous.
Indigenous people from all over the world. Now, the knowledge of plants and the knowledge of how those plants work, that's a science. That's an actual science because it's something time tested and it's something known. It's technical. It's a reality. It's not dealing with belief. It's not dealing with how I feel. It's not dealing with any of that. It's dealing with the reality of the plant. So these people go and they take that plant and they now synthesize it and they put, again, dealing with the physical. They take physical aspects of the plant, not understanding that the plant also has a spiritual side to it that does what it needs to do to the spirit and not just the physical body. So they take the physical aspect of the plant and then now they extract it, and once you extract it, it becomes a drug. Now they put the drug in pills and then they feed it to people. Now people have to stay on those pills consistently.
Right. Alchemical copy of a plant. And then the thing is when you make a chemical copy, it comes with a lot of side effects that the original herb didn't actually come with because the herb itself is from nature. The herb itself is meant to work with the body. The herb itself integrates itself into the body and also works spiritually with the body, right? So, but then when you just take the chemical compound out of the herb and you make like a chemical copy, then it no longer carries the properties that the original herb had. Maybe it'll do some of the same things, so it'll mimic some of the healing quote unquote properties of the herb, but maybe it just masks symptoms rather than provides an actual healing effect.
So the interesting thing is you guys took the conversation there is what the modern medical system does is that the modern medical system can only deal with the physical. So what they do is they'll go steal indigenous recipes and indigenous secrets of plants, right? And then they'll make their medical students go out and then do their dissertation or whatever it is that they have to do. They got to go do research, all that kind of stuff. So they're already like grooming you. And what they do is they groom you with an ideological perspective. They groom you with an ideological point of view where they direct your thinking in a particular direction. And they direct your thinking to say, okay, this is what we want you to focus on. This is what we want you to go do. And they start training you and they start indoctrinating you, no pun intended, so that what they do is when they send you out, you're going out into these indigenous areas and you're trying to figure out how to approach their healing practices, but from the modern medical system's ideologies. So what you do is you start removing the spiritual aspect, because the indigenous deal with also, like I said, there are 4 components to the human being, right? There's the spirit, the soul, there's the body, and the name, right? So if you're dealing with the spirit, then you're dealing with things that have to do with what we are known at, or what we commonly refer to as the soul, right? So we'll just use them interchangeably just for ease of access, right? So if you're dealing with the spirit or the non-material aspect of the physical plant, it means that it's not coming from human beings. It's coming from nature. It serves a very specific purpose. It does something very specific. It was created by something within nature, right? So they remove that aspect and they focus solely on the physical. And when they remove that aspect and they focus solely on the physical, what happens are there are complications, which means there are side effects. So when they give you the drugs, right, there are side effects that come with it. So they got to give you more drugs to deal with the side effects that come with it. And then they got to give you more drugs to deal with the side effects that come with the side effects from taking the first drug. Then you start taking the second drug to deal with the side effects of the first drug. And then you got to start taking another drug to deal with the side effects of the third drug. And then so it begins, and you're just in it for forever.
It's like those commercials for like Xanax or whatever. But they'll be like, everybody's happy in the commercial.
Exactly.
And then they're listing off all these things, and it's like, you could die. But they say it like really
But they
fast.
say it
Really
so fast, they're like,
fast. Yeah.
could result in homicide.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what?
They cause suicide, stroke,
And everybody was
heart
like,
attack.
Yeah.
It's
But then
like,
they
what-
always show like when it's like the lady eating an ice cream and she's
yeah. Or like an old couple in a bathtub.
like, yeah, exactly. It's like always some random
Well, it's probably for like
image.
Viagra or something,
Yeah.
but
Well, no, for Viagra, it's always like an older middle-aged white couple like camping or some shit.
It's
and then
weird.
it's like, and then the guy is like turning off the
Yeah.
light in the tent.
But it's like terrifying because it's like that's like America, like
Yeah.
you're saying, right? It's like this weird facade, but then they're saying like all these horrific like things that could happen to
Like
you.
we all buy into it, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
and then
it's
people are like, "Oh, I'll take that. Great."
Well, they have
like,
everybody by the balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's belief. That's all it is.
There's any
Because
other
people
option.
believe in the system. It's like they had to educate people in that way because it breeds like soldiers again. Like we're all soldiers for the modern medical system. That's all we are. And really, I have to really think about it like in a personal sense, right? Because I remember my mom telling me that before coming to this country, they never heard of diabetes.
Oh, really?
They
Jamaica,
ne-
right?
Yeah, in Jamaica. They never heard of diabetes. Most people never heard of cancer. There's a lot of things that people never heard of. And I had to ask myself then, okay, so then where do these things come from?
Exactly.
And
America.
why? Why did they not hear about these things?
God bless
And
America.
it goes back to, again, diet. That's one. The food that they ate was natural. It had not just a physical,
It's not altered.
right?
It's
It-
not packaged, processed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But even more importantly, what people from back then had in indigenous places, or people who had some kind of knowledge of indigenous society had, is they had the idea of a sense of community. They had the idea of a sense of herbs and knowledge of those herbs. And community played a big part, because if I'm going down to Miss Jane or Miss Joyce down the block from me, who is the local medicine lady, right? Or the bush lady, right? She has all the tinctures and all the herbs, and whatever problem I have, then she knows what to give me. But also in my own household, my mother and my grandmother are feeding me all these different things. They're giving me all these different baths. They're giving me all these different herbs. And then I'm walking around, and then they're feeding me food cooked with good energy, food cooked with herbs, and food cooked with all these different combinations of foods that, go well together, that feed the spirit, feed the body. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to be in balance.
Exactly.
But when you remove that, and now you take somebody who's not even from the community, and you put that person inside the community, inside of a building where they're now dictating to you what you should eat, what you should take, and how you should live, and they're doing all these different experiments on you and all this stuff, and you're going to them. You don't even know them personally. Not really. They're not from your community. What do you think is going to happen to you? Of course you're going to be lacking. Of course you're not going to be healed.
We're even separated from community from birth here, right? Because it's like we don't even live with our extended families anymore. We're now in these like family units in small apartments or households, and then you don't even have you barely even know your neighbors. So right, where the sense of community is gone. No more is there an herbalist or a medicine man or a medicine woman in the village that you go to. You go to the doctor, who is a practitioner, keyword practice, practicing on you to figure out what's wrong with you. They themselves may not be eating well. They themselves may have sicknesses. So, and then they're basically paid by big pharma to recommend certain drugs to you that maybe you're already in the pocket of the drug companies. And so it's like a self-perpetuating system where it's like, we're going to cover your symptoms just enough so you keep coming back to us. You're never going to get well enough for you to get free of the medical system. You're just going to keep coming back.
So I think you touched on something interesting, right? Is you touched. on, you're not a drag queen, but
Whoa, that went left very quick.
yeah, this isn't RuPaul's Drag Race. No one is tucking here. You touched on symptoms, right? So the modern medical system really functions off of cessating symptoms,
Yeah.
the cessation of symptoms.
Comfort.
So what they do is they just want to make sure you don't feel the symptoms of whatever it is that you're feeling anymore. And then if your symptoms are like, I'm feeling pain, they're like, okay, let's give them some painkillers. Like, oh, like my symptoms are this, then they're like, okay, let's cut it out, right?
Where you put them on the IV and make them feel all pumped up.
Right.
But they're really
There's a place
dying
I
Maybe
saw-
the
inside.
symptoms are a signal.
I saw this
Right.
place the other day. It's called Let It Drip, and you walk in and you get IV.
What?
And I was like, "What is this?"
Are you for real?
Yeah, I'm not joking. It's
Like,
called
can
like Let
you
It Drip
choose
or
what goes
something
in
like
the
that.
IV?
I don't know. I didn't walk in. I wasn't like.
No,
It's like
they-
desire
I didn't
IV.
walk in and I wasn't like, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen." I just saw a lady and I saw her walking by with like that thing that they use in the hospitals that you can hook the IV up to
Yeah.
when like you're kind of wheeling somebody
Yeah.
away.
Uh-huh.
And the lady was like walking around and the IV was dripped up into her hand, was dripping into her arm, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
I want some like super vitamin C IV,
I don't know.
or I want some antibiotic IV.
Isn't it just like
I want-
sugar? Like IV? I think it's just
I
sugar.
mean-
I think
isn't
it's just like
It could be
potassium or
anything.
something like
They
that.
could put
right?
they could put a bunch of things in the IV. You could put vitamins. You could put like B12 in the IV. You could put antibiotics in the IV. You could put glucose in the IV.
Apparently, they have IVs for like hangovers and
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
that's like a pretty
cleansing,
popular thing.
That's
all this kind of stuff.
just drink some ginger, bro.
It's like if you're like at Burning Man in
Ginger.
the desert and you're a rich person and you're like,
You get an IV.
I'm exhausted, but I
Really?
want to keep partying, and then they bring an IV. No, I'm serious. That's, what
That's
people
crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
Carter just commented and said that people use IV to recover from hangover.
do. Yep.
Who said that?
Yeah, Medica.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's
So
it's
I'm gonna
crazy.
stick my hand with a needle just to recover from a hangover. You really
mean-
are hungover, because you got to be drunk to do that. That's crazy. I don't.
Crickets.
No.
Crickets.
It wasn't even supposed to be a joke. It was just me thinking to myself out loud, like,
the way
what
you
the hell?
delivered it is like you delivered it like you were expecting us all to be like.
No,
"Oh,
not
oh,
even,
oh."
not even, not even.
But-
It's just crazy. That's crazy to me. I
Yeah,
don't.
but they want to. They going back to the symptom issue is
Yeah.
like they want to have you just feel as comfortable as possible, but not actually cure the sickness itself. And
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you know, it's like I think it's become big business over time, and like they
Over
kind of
time.
saw the need to like keep people on medications for like ever and ever.
Damn.
Well,
But like originally, when I was like doing my research on the modern medical system, like originally, you know how the modern medical system, they're good at surgery, right? If you get into an accident, if you get into like a serious issue, emergency issue, they're gonna cut you open probably, or if you're not already like, you know, bleeding out, they have ways to sew you back up. They have ways to put another organ into you. They have ways to, if your blood is compromised, give you blood from another person.
stop. You're making me feel funny.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, just like you said, sew you back up. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, because I was reading on the history, and literally back in Italy, in Padua, University of Padua, there was a time where
I only
they
know
were
that because it's the city in a Shakespeare play.
really.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, like there was a time, it was like mid 1500s. Originally, the way that they understood human anatomy was they were dissecting monkeys, like rhesus monkeys. And that was the way that they kind of,
Reese's monkeys,
whatever kind of monkeys. And they said, like, this
like
is,
Reese's buttercups.
no, there's
It's a
kind of
it's
monkey.
an actual breed of, or I mean species of.
Yeah,
Reese's.
Reese's, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Reese's.
Why do you guys know this? Do you know this?
No, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But you guys somehow like you backed her up immediately. You're like Reese's monkeys.
And no, but they literally, before, there was some spiritual understanding at some point in
Of
time that,
monkeys?
no, you're not supposed to open up the human body.
Right.
Right, because it was a taboo at some point, like before 1200
In like
AD.
in Greek and Roman times.
Greek and Roman
it
times,
was very
it
taboo.
was actually a taboo.
Mm-hmm.
That they knew spiritually, if you're going to open the human body and you're going to like take an organ out or put something in, spiritually, you're going to compromise a person already.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until like the 1500s, around that time, in this university in particular, that the physicians or people in training there decided, oh, well, only around carnival time, carnival, where there's already a lot of debauchery in the air, we're going to open this up and we're going to take some dead bodies and we're going to open them up and it'll be a show. it became literally like a theater show of people opening up bodies and dissecting bodies, where they could find out what organ systems were which, what's here, what's there, and it became literally like a spectacle.
See, you just said something that is gonna piss a lot of the Caribbean people off, because a lot of Caribbean people think like carnival is like our culture, but they don't know that carnival comes from carnival, which is like a European celebration, like Fat Tuesday, which is like this. We're a little off topic with this one. I just want to throw this out to piss them off.
As always.
Like in Trinidad, the Africans were not allowed to march with the Europeans during Fat Tuesday. So when they let the slaves and the Africans march, we brought our cultural celebration in dressing up and like putting on the masquerade and putting on the mask and like putting on the walking on the stilts and putting on all the feathers and stuff. Like that's a traditional African thing. So we brought that there to Trinidad when they let us march with them. So we kind of took it on as like our cultural tradition. But carnival really is like, you know, a European thing. And carnival is actually the celebration of the god Bacchus or the god Liber.
There you go. Right, and so when this ultimate freedom opened up during this time, Carnival, is when they could actually open up bodies. And then it became more and more accepted in the culture that they just kept doing it more and more and more until like today. I mean, they in medical schools, you know, people donate their bodies to science.
Cadavers.
Yeah.
That's so crazy to think about.
And
You
so
gotta take that organ donor delineation off your license.
I'd never signed that. Never.
But anybody that works in like medical anything, pretty much, like you have to work on cadavers. Like I had a friend who was a chiropractor, and he had cadaver stories, like really, yeah.
I mean, the modern medical system
My
is
dad says that chiropractors are massage therapists.
shout out to Mubasha.
Yeah, shout out to my dad.
But so the thing is, like, the modern medical system, because of all this dissection of human bodies, is really good at human anatomy. They're really good at knowing where the liver is, where the kidneys are, how they're structured, all the tubes.
Yeah, because they open it up. It's
'Cause
easy
they
to
open it
know
up.
because you're opening it up.
But
Talk about cheating on the test.
Simply opening up the body doesn't give you a good idea of functionality of the body and how each of these organ systems works with one another, what can happen when it's over toxified, how you give herbs to detox certain organs. You know, it's like literally it's like, again, just going to the physical aspect, not even understanding the functional aspect fully. Maybe they understand some of the functionality of these organs, but fully understanding even how to administer certain herbs to cleanse organ systems rather than just cover symptoms is like the issue across the board, because most of these modern medical issues that people come across are simply an issue of not cleansing the body properly. Years and years of like waste building up in the system is like the way that you get a modern medical diagnosis, and yet they will give you all these labels. And if you simply go to an indigenous healer, they would say, this level of waste is built up in your body, and we need to cleanse your body. We need to cleanse your organ system, your liver, your kidney, your blood. And then, but the modern medical system won't even talk about detoxification.
Well, it's because you have to fit in with their ideologies. And when you don't fit in with their ideologies, anything that starts deviating from their ideologies, then they start referring to as holistic, right? So then the interesting thing is, so you're telling me that you don't take the whole aspect of the human being into consideration.
Right.
So you're telling me that you're only taking in one aspect of them, right? So they're even telling you, because when you go to somebody that's not a medical practitioner, they say, oh, you're going the holistic route. Oh, you're a holistic doctor. Oh, you're this, you're that, because you start incorporating things that don't, or alternative, because you start incorporating things that don't fit into their ideology. So the thing is let's say you go to the doctor tomorrow, right? Or you go to the hospital tomorrow. Something's going wrong. You go in, and then they always follow a set order of procedures, right? First thing they do is what?
Well, they check your pressure, your temperature,
They check your
height,
temperature,
and all
they
that.
check your blood pressure, they get your weight, they get all that stuff. Now they start even testing you, right? Because they want to make sure where you fall on their scale, their rubric of standard, right? So the interesting thing is, whose blood pressure are you using it?
Compared to, right?
Compared to, right?
Right.
The average.
Like the average is coming from who? Most of the time it's coming from first and foremost, it's coming from a white person. That's the average.
European
sample.
white,
Average
Anglo-Saxon male, because not even all Europeans are the same.
Exactly, right? So then it's like, okay, it could be completely different depending upon where you are on the earth, because the type, how far or how close you are to the equator will determine how hard your heart has to pump
What
even the
normal
blood, right?
blood pressure is.
So then it will automatically, you can poke holes in their ideology, right? Because depending upon how much more your heart has to work to pump the blood, depending upon the location geographically you find yourself on the earth, will determine then how your blood pressure is different, right? What you eat will determine how your blood pressure is different, because what you ingest can then be found in the bloodstream and could therefore either block or hinder the flow of the blood. So there are a lot of different ways you can really poke holes in this whole aspect of blood pressure, right? And then they go temperature, right? Everybody has to fit the same kind of temperature. So, which is really different because, you know, everybody's temperament is different. So then your temperature could be, your base rubric of a temperature could be, could vary from the person to person, right? So let's say you go to the doctor, right, Tesiptah? Can you share a story of how maybe they tried to throw this kind of like basic rubric at you, and how it then almost or could have played out differently if you didn't apply what you had been learning?
Yeah. When I was almost to full term with my son, I gave birth at a birthing center, but I come to find out that it's actually pretty much the same as like a hospital. Like they do all the same stuff, really, all the same kind of testing and everything. But they check your blood pressure every time you go in. And I had just drank like a coffee or something, and I hadn't really eaten anything that day. And I went in, and so my blood pressure was like slightly higher than it was. Nothing, it wasn't like in the red or anything, right? And they wanted to send me to the hospital like immediately to get induced. And
How far along were you?
I was a week away from my due date, so yeah.
They get paid to induce you, that's why.
Yeah, I was like, this is kind of weird. But I mean, under normal circumstances, I've probably been like, oh my God, like, you know, I could have preeclampsia. That's what they kept like kind of telling me, like, you have preeclampsia, like you can die from that. The baby can die. Like they kept like telling me that. And this is all for my blood pressure being like a little bit higher. So I didn't go to the hospital to get tested. I just did the test there. And the midwife was pretty annoyed with me. Because that test takes like 24 hours or something to go through, which they take your blood and then they test it. But it came back and it was negative for anything wrong. So I would have gone, they would have just induced me for,
Right.
yeah.
Hospital would have just induced you to like save their own ass, the liability.
Well, yeah, it's also a lot of money for them, and yeah, it's a liability thing. But induction,
Like we're not going to lose this baby on the off chance, so we're just going to induce. Yeah.
and then, you know, induction is usually, it goes to C-section a lot of the time because it's not natural, you know. So.
And that's another big payout for them. If they can perform a C-section surgery, that's big bucks.
Yeah, and we know the spiritual implications of a C-section. You know, if you're initiated, we won't go into it here, but it's not, you know, when you come out naturally through the mother, through the vaginal canal, that carries spiritual implications that are positive for the child, rather than being cut out of the womb.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about, like, you know, money here. Like, at least we've mentioned money and how much these doctors are getting paid. And we've talked about how the system is really just an industry. And I think it makes sense that we give the context that what we're even calling the modern medical system is but only 200 years old. Yes, it's true that historically their principles and their concepts are coming back from ancient Greece. But even in Europe, they still had a context of understanding that herbs played a part in healing. They still had a context in understanding that there's actual ways that you still go about doing things. But it wasn't until after the Industrial Revolution where everything became an industry and they started to capitalize on every aspect of human life that they had the idea to actually create a medical industry. And during this time, people who were practicing like what they're calling holistic doctoring or holistic like ways of healing were actually outed out as heretics. So they would, some of them were burned at the stake. They would say they were witches, they were doing witchcraft, whatever. Some people, they were just saying were just
Like who, me? No, I don't know anything about healing.
some people they would say were just charlatans. Like, it was a very crazy time. Like during, yeah, like
I
for
mean,
real.
that's what they're doing now with these so-called doctors, these holistic alternative doctors that commit suicide, that just all end up suicidal, and then they all end up killing themselves.
Like Dr. Sebi in his cell.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
supposedly just died.
it's funny because I was, if you listen to the Vimeo lecture, we have it available on Vimeo, the lecture by Master Naba about traditional healing versus modern medicine. He touches on a lot of this stuff, and he talks about how he remembers vividly in Africa around 86, around 85, 86, 87, something like that, 1985, 1986, 1987, in Africa, where they were hunting. There was a manhunt for indigenous healers that were healing AIDS, which means they were hunting you down in Africa.
I believe it.
If you knew how to handle or heal the disease of AIDS.
Was that because they wanted AIDS to continue?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They didn't want a cure.
Big money.
They were stopping. Like if they
Huge
found out
money.
you could heal AIDS, then they were killing you, or they were like trapping, like imprisoning you.
And yeah, that's crazy. I mean, and nowadays, in recent years, with the whole string of holistic doctors dying in Florida in particular, because there's an aging population.
Everything happens in Florida.
Shout out to Florida.
There's
There's something in the water.
There's an aging population in Florida, and so there were a number of holistic doctors in Florida in particular who were learning to deal with certain illnesses like cancer, like even like autism, and were like researching certain ways in which they could, you know, match the physical and use like herbal remedies and use like mental and psychological remedies and like, you know, turn certain things around in the body itself. And some of these doctors who were like coming across certain discoveries were like found in rivers, dead, you know, were like found in their home strangled. And their families were like,
What?
this is, yeah,
Listen,
no, this happened.
Eaten by alligators.
Again, if I'm the drug dealer,
The self-impregnating crocodile.
right? Again, if I'm the drug dealer and I'm making big money
Exactly.
in my area,
Exactly.
and you coming up here talking about your product is better than mine,
You're out.
You're out.
You're out, and it doesn't
I'm
matter.
sticking my alligator on you.
Yeah, they're gonna
Yeah,
feed you
'cause
to
it
the
was- 'cause it was
self-impregnating
working.
crocodile. Because it doesn't even matter if your product is better. This is the thing, right? Is the modern medical system doesn't give a shit if you are actually able to do something better than them, because they have everybody by the balls to the point where what they do is they indoctrinate everybody, and they're very good at conditioning you into believing that what they're able to do cannot be trumped by anything outside of the modern medical system.
It's true.
And what they do is they then have you buying and eating everything that they're selling and they're feeding you, and then you're unwilling to consider anything outside of the modern medical system.
It's true.
So even if you have something better than them, why is it, if what they do is so much better than everything that you could give, why do they have to kill you? Why do they have to take you out? Because if your product was not better than theirs, they would not have to take you out.
I mean, yeah. Can I just tell my story for a second? Because
No.
Yes.
because I've had some run-ins with the modern medical system. Like, I am a doctor of psychology, but I am actually grateful that I haven't gone through the indoctrination of the big pharma system, because technically psychologists are not allowed to prescribe medications. And, we work with the mind, and in terms of guiding a human in terms of their thinking and their behaviors to something different. Right?
So you're colonizers.
Possibly. Yeah, well, that's another episode. That's definitely another episode. But in terms of my own run-ins with the modern medical system, I had at one point in time, I think it was like 2011, 2010, I was in my second year of grad school, and I was getting constant symptoms of urinary tract infections. So meaning I had to pee all the time. It felt like burning sensations. And yet every time I would go to the doctor, the only thing they would think to do would be testing for bacteria. One single bacteria that they usually test for in UTIs, which is E. coli. And every time it would come back negative. So, but just to cover their ass, every time they would give me a course of antibiotics, right? So I would leave the doctor with a new script of antibiotics. I would fulfill it as a good consumer of the modern medical system. And I would take the antibiotics month after month after month. I'm literally talking about months of going to doctors to figure this thing out. And each time the problem would not be resolved, it would get worse. Every month it was getting worse and worse and worse. Until finally they wanted to send me to a urologist, right? Because now they have doctors for every single part of the body. You can go to a doctor for the brain, cardiologist for the heart. You can go to someone for your intestines.
But that's kind of crazy because they all work together.
Exactly. But now everyone's trained in their individual little speck of the body, and they don't even work together. So when I went to this urologist and I told him, I have these urinary symptoms, but I have all these other symptoms, like I'm getting headaches, I'm getting fatigue, I'm getting little eye floaters. And he was like, well, I don't deal with any of that. I mean, sorry, you're gonna have to go to, this doctor to deal with those issues, but I can help you with your urinary symptoms, and I'm gonna give you this drug, high-powered drug for geriatric patients. I was 28 years old, by the way. I'm going to give you this high-powered drug for geriatric patients, which will stop the urinary muscle, and it will make you just not feel like you have to go to the bathroom.
Wow.
Literally just I will just give you this pill to cover the symptom that you're having, but you're going to have to be on this for a long time. And I thought about this for a second, because I was in a lot of pain at this point in time. I was, this was not a comfortable situation for me. And I almost took this thing, because I was like, if this just gives me a relief from the pain, maybe I should do it. But something in me was like, nah, there has to be something else to this. This isn't just I'm not just going to be on this medication for life. And at that point, I had to do my own exploration through a number of internet holes, basically, to figure out that there's other ways to heal yourself through changing your diet, through changing even the way that you think, through herbs. I started taking herbs at that point. And I had to literally travel through these like dark corners of the internet of people trying to heal themselves to find some sort of natural remedies.
On the dark web?
Yeah, there's a whole dark web of people who are very sick out there.
The dark web of, you got cancer, bro? How'd you do it? I drank bleach.
Yeah, I mean, that literally began my journey of figuring out that the modern medical system has us all by the balls, and that we need to do something different.
So before we move on a little bit, if there's anybody in the chat that has an experience with the modern medical system, just showed their incompetence, then please, share that in the chat.
I have another one.
Go for it. It's like torture porn. It's like you will not outperform my situation, Tiasta. Here comes Tesiptah.
I mean, well, you're asking for examples, so. But yeah, when you get pregnant in the system, right? Like, you go get scanned. There's like a 20-week scan, and then they continue on from there. And at the first scan, I was excited. I was like, oh, I get to find out the gender of my baby, and you get to see them moving and stuff. And they did that, but then they don't like say anything during the whole thing. So you're like, is something wrong? But that's like their MO. That's like what they do in case there's something wrong. And then they tell you later. Anyway, they rushed me off to this room. They're like, we need to take your blood. And they didn't really say what it was for. I was like, okay. But they were like, we have to do it. And then I get a call a few days later from the midwife, and she's like, just so you know, your baby tested positive for Down syndrome. And I was like, what? And I was like scared, and I was like, what is going on? And so
how did they
she
test
said
that though?
It's a blood test.
Chromosomes, right?
Yeah, and then they also told me that because I was in my 30s and it's a boy, that it's like a higher risk of being Down syndrome. So that like doubles it or something apparently. And so the midwife was like, I'm sure everything's fine, but you do have to go talk to the genetic counselor. That's like for you to give birth here. You have to like consent, basically, be like, okay, like if you want to keep the pregnancy or not. But that's what they, a genetic counselor is.
Yeah, they give you the option to abort at that point.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many months were you?
This was 20 weeks. So.
How many months is that?
I don't know.
Not about to do the math.
Anyways.
That's at least 3 months.
It's at least 3 months. Right?
No, wait. It was just under 20 weeks. It was probably like.
So like 2.5, 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Wait,
but
5 months?
But they made me go. I had to go.
20 weeks,
She asked me all these questions. She's like, are there people who are disabled in your family? And just, it was like really weird. And was just like, oh, we can do this test where, they put a needle in you to like the sac of the baby, and they pull out fluid. And I said no. And yeah, she was just like, okay, well, you may have a baby with Down syndrome, but if you're okay with that, then that's fine. So
they were trying to scare you into doing this thing.
Yeah, to do this like test. So
And her baby's completely
fine.
The baby is completely healthy, does not have Down syndrome, and you didn't have any complications.
No.
What?
No, it was totally fine. No complications.
You can see Down syndrome on, like you can visibly see, like if Zawaz had Down syndrome, we'd be able to see it. Like if he doesn't have Down syndrome. So, I'm just saying, like anyone, like if Kenny Bosher had Down syndrome, we would see
but
it on
it put me on this like whole
Down syndrome. They like.
Yeah, I had this like insane
walk around with the Down syndrome face.
I had this crazy like anxiety most of my pregnancy, because of that. But it's like it's a fear-based system for sure. And I don't even remember what I was going to say because you keep.
It sounds like they're just bullies, man. That these guys
were they actually were giving you the option, like, do you want to terminate?
I think the father wants to add something about Down syndrome.
Ujay, this is Heqwabti, the father of the child. Tesiptah forgot to mention that right after we found that out, we went on this long online slope, like whatever. We were just
Internet hole.
Yeah,
You went
internet
on a
hole. We were
rabbit
just trying to
hole?
figure out like what's going on with this blood test, and we found out that this blood test usually is false, that there are a lot of false positives. There was this whole thing on that, and all these mothers on YouTube, and they're like, they're just trying to scare you, everything's okay. And like we realized, like in most cases, that blood test is not a thing.
Wow.
But they also, part of it is they'll be like, well, with this test, you'll know the gender for sure. Like more certain than like a scan. So it's like a way to get you to
put the
take the
needle in?
test.
Yeah.
Well, to put the needle in that test.
No,
No, they do
that's
the test before the
I
needle.
forget what that test is called, but that's like where if they think something's wrong,
genetic testing.
they can test like it's something with the amniotic fluid, but
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
I had a friend that called me one day and was like,
Here it comes.
my-
She's like, you will not outdo me, Tesiptah.
it's not a personal story, but and like I had a friend that called me one day and was like, they say my baby could have Down syndrome. Like we are getting the option to abort the baby. What do you think I should do?
Yeah.
And this was a person who like respected my opinion enough to call me in this situation, and I was like, I gave it to him straight as much as I knew at the time. I was like, I don't think that's a good idea to abort your spirit that's coming. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna have Down syndrome or not. I don't know what tests they've run, but like I just don't think that that's a good idea. And he was very scared because he was like, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I have the emotional capacity to raise a child with Down syndrome. I don't think, it's not like in my life plan to do that. And they ended
Who
up
plans to have a child with Down syndrome?
No, they ended up aborting the baby.
They did.
Whoa, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, they did then.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't take my advice, it's-
And there's probably nothing was wrong with that
Could
baby. Chances are.
Possibly, yeah. But it was just based on the tests, whatever tests that had been run.
But
And-
again,
yeah.
it's all these tests that they run are all like standard tests.
Yeah.
So they're looking for something standard across the board for all people, which again doesn't make sense because not all people are going to be the same. So it really sounds like the modern medical system is just really out here just being medical gangsters and pimps.
that's a lot of
Just like
They're flipping
eugenics
the coin.
is pushed, but it's just like reframed to make it seem like, yeah.
Damn,
Also, I mean-
that's crazy, man.
So we have a few people commenting in the chat. So DeMarcus said, I got my tonsils removed when I was a kid and recently found out that you need your tonsils. Yes, you need everything in your
Yeah.
body. That's the thing, is that if you didn't need it, it wouldn't be in there. If you
Right.
don't know what it's there for, doesn't mean that you don't need it. Because there's a lot of different parts of the body that they say, well, you don't need it. It's okay. It's not going to make a difference. So then why is it in there?
Because they just don't know, man. They
Fact.
don't know. That's what Tiasta was saying. They can dissect you. They can cut you up, take your organs out, all this stuff. That doesn't mean that they know. They don't
Exactly.
know.
They don't. So then we also have Zebekia, who said that my dad had a stroke and had 6 or more doctors working only one part of the body. They kept prescribing meds that were conflicting badly with the meds prescribed from other doctors. See, obviously they never took the Hippocratic Oath because...
No, they did. They're hypocrites. That's why it's Hippocratic.
Oh, isn't that Hippocratic Oath supposed to be like, I will declare when I know not, or something like that? So obviously those doctors were all full of it because none of them were willing to admit that they know not. And probably, this is the thing, is doctors get kickbacks for aligning themselves with certain pharmaceutical companies. So depending upon how many pills that they subscribe, they will get a kickback of money or support, if you call it, from pharmaceutical companies for how many people they prescribe the medicine to, right? So there's a good series on Hulu called Dope Sick. That's about what's that drug they got everybody addicted to? That had
Oxycontin.
Vicodin.
Oxycontin.
Oxycontin. About whatever. I can't talk
Oxycodone, Oxycontin.
Yeah,
It's just codeine, isn't
that
it?
one.
Yeah,
It's basically
essentially.
just codeine.
Yeah, but they had
Painkiller.
lied about a slow release type of tablet or something like that, but it would actually release all of it at one time. So they were like lying. But check it out. And it talks about that, and it
It's like
gives an insight
opioids, right?
into that.
Were people just like
opioids.
ODing like crazy on it then?
Yeah. Yeah, but the only reason why they cared about that though is also because it was a bunch of white people.
Yeah, white people were dying from taking it.
You guys can check that out. And then we also had Medicata said, I had a similar situation to Tiasta. They gave me antibiotics for months, stronger each time, and the issue got worse and worse. Once it got so bad, they told me they don't know what was wrong, leaving me with the issue after they tested their drugs on me without knowing what was
Exactly.
actually going on.
Just feed you drugs.
Sounds like it. They just give you, they're just like, hey, you know what, let's study this, let's try this out, let's see what we can do, and then if we can't figure it out,
It's experimental. And
whatever.
and that's the thing about antibiotics. Like, antibiotics is very dangerous because when you give the body antibiotics, the body actually fights the antibiotics. And then what ends up happening is it adapts to the antibiotics. So now you have to get a stronger antibiotic to fight off what the body has already adapted to. And then the body, again, is trying to survive for itself. So it's going to adapt to even that. And then you got to get more antibiotics. And the whole time, this is causing you more damage because the body's going through dramatic amounts of stress each time you apply a new or stronger version of antibiotics.
Kills the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Exactly.
kills
All
everything. It's anti-life, bio-life, right? So we also have Zebekia. She said, yep, I also got a false positive. My last child got this test and was told about some abnormalities. They did another test before the poke for the placenta. I was grateful. All showed to be just fine. And then Akila Johnson, a.k.a. Satneeth, said, after having my last daughter, my blood pressure was a bit elevated. Doctors tried to convince me to take blood pressure meds, in which I refused. Long story short, they released me from the hospital. If I promised to come back and have my pressure checked, I returned and kept taking my blood pressure until it was high again and threatened to keep me there if I didn't take the blood pressure meds. I asked for alternatives, in which they said there were none and that I'd have to take the meds for the rest of my life. I took the meds to leave and never took them again and never had any problems. This is the problem, is that they do that to so many people. I know of a story recently where I know of somebody, and I'm not going to say the person's name. I know of somebody that went to the doctor with high blood pressure. They were 6 months pregnant. They went to the doctor because they were losing their vision and they had high blood pressure, and the doctor said, you have preeclampsia and there's a possibility that you will die or the baby will die. And they essentially, in so many words, pressured the mom or the mom to be to acquiesce to whatever they were pressuring them to do, the young couple. And what they did is they did an emergency C-section at 6 months, and they took the baby out, and then a few days later, the baby ended up dying. Now, this is like the Sparks Note version, kind of leaving out a lot, but it's just some examples of the way that they will pressure you into
6 months.
doing things. Yeah, 6 months is really sad. Into doing things because they want to make sure that, as long as you fit their diagnostic rubric, which is like, okay, you fall under preeclampsia. And I know Tesiptah was sharing a story about how they were saying that she had preeclampsia and they were pressuring her to do this and do that. But the thing is that a lot of these doctors, they're all a part of a massive network.
Liability.
It's all liability. It means they're all trying to cover their own ass, trying to make sure, hey, like, as long as I make sure you do the things that you can't then come sue me for later, that's all I care about.
Yeah, can I just add one thing to the story? After we heard the medical version of what was going on, we went to Naba, to Edita Naba, and we asked him about the baby to check on the baby for us.
You mean like through a divination, like through a reading on
Traditional healer, yeah.
Traditional healer.
And basically,
You're like, if you were looking for anybody, modern medical system, come find this guy.
well,
And you just put him out there like that too. You like, we're like, here's his name and the first name.
well, basically, we found out that the baby was fine, and a lot of times, what people think are medical issues. And the way that the medical system frames it to try to scare you are really just spiritual issues. There may be things that maybe you did that you weren't supposed to do, or there may be things that you need to clear up. But usually it's something that, like, if you work with a traditional healer, that you can hopefully clear those things up before the
Before it
child
gets to that point.
Yeah, before it gets to that point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're gonna cap it at this point because, you know, we're gonna bring you another part to this, possibly a part 3, depending upon the way part 2 goes, and hopefully, you know, we will have a specific guest that's also coming from that world that we'll be able to talk to next week, because, you know, as initiates, we can always give you the perspective, and we can always inform you, and we can always, you know, give you insight into the alternatives and really the origins of the modern society and the modern medical system and all of the pillars of the modern society. But we also want to make sure to expand the conversation to include views that oppose us and show that, you know, there's not a what's the word when you have, there's not a monopoly on what the modern medical system likes to call healing. There's not a monopoly on the mind. There's not a monopoly on intellectual approach to anything. So if you even know people that you feel would be good to come on the show, and you want to make suggestions for people that you think would be good to come on Gate of Gates podcast and to discuss whatever it is, any domain, anything, and you would like them to come on the Gate of Gates podcast and talk to us and have conversations, then please make sure to reach out to us. You can send us an email at newjerseynj@theearthcenter.org and make your suggestions and let us know. You can come visit us. We're in Fort Lee. I don't know if you really want to come make a personal visit to come, you know, to come suggest, but if you do, you're more than welcome. Come visit the temple. We have locations all throughout the United States. We have a location in Houston. We have a location in Baltimore. We have a location in Chicago. Obviously, we have a location here in New Jersey because we're in the New Jersey location. And we also have a temple in Salt Point, New York. We have 2 temples in Canada. We have one in Montreal. We have one in Toronto. We have 2 in the UK. We have one in London. We have one in Coventry. And we also obviously have temples. Our headquarters in Merita is in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. And we have many temples that we are aligned with all throughout the continent of Merita. So there are a lot of different resources. And we wanted to touch on this topic because we want you to know that there are alternatives. There are many alternatives. And just because they can bully you, just because they can, you know, pressure you, just because they can condition you, just because they can make you think that there are no other alternatives, it doesn't mean that there aren't. And we want to do that. And we want to continue, we don't want to do that. We want to continue to remind you that there are alternatives. There are many alternatives to the modern medical system. You can check us out at anhlife.org. Right here. Check it out on Costa Natural Healing, anhlife.org. And we have a lot of events coming to you in different parts of the U.S. This month and next month. So we have an event in Colorado, which is going to be next weekend. Please check it out. Go to dogonwisdom.com where you can learn about all of the events that we have going on right now. You can go to, we have events that are coming to Austin in Texas, and then we have events that are going to be here in New York. We have many events that are happening in New Jersey all the time. You can check out all of those events at Kebtah-nj.org, where you can find out about all the events that are happening in the tri-state area for the New Jersey Temple and everything that we're doing. We have a talk on July 15th at Weeksville. I'll be giving that talk. We'll be talking about the origins of the ways that we identify ourselves when it comes to colors, the history of why somebody would call themselves a black man, why somebody would call themselves a white woman. All of those things I'll be going into on that talk. So please check out all of the many things that we have. You can get your new copy of the new version of the Philosophy Podium at risingfirefly.org. You can get your hot sauce at Sauce. I don't know the website off the top of my head, but it'll be there for you. All of these wonderful offerings that we have, please check them out. And we'll be back with you guys next week with another episode of the Gated Gates podcast. And that way we will continue this talk about the modern medical system, and we'll keep going at it. Again, if there's anything you would like us to touch on, feel free to reach out to us. If there's any people that you would like to see come on the podcast for us to touch base with and for us to talk to, or to, you know, debate or have an intellectual sparring match, we're not afraid. I will take, and I want all the smoke. This has been another episode of the Gated Gates podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week, and may you continue to tune in. Idiota.